People who got away with murder but confessed while dying. In the annals of criminal history, it exists a peculiar subset of cases where the guilty parties, having eluded justice for years, unexpectedly come clean about their crimes at the threshold of death. These instances, both chilling and confounding, offer a glimpse into the complexities of the human psyche and the weight of conscience. Despite evading the long arm of the law for significant durations, these individuals find themselves compelled to unburden their souls, perhaps driven by a primal urge for absolution or an innate desire to confront the truth before departing this world. Their confessions, uttered in whispers or scrawled hastily on paper, serve as haunting epilogues to tales of deceit, manipulation, and tragedy. As we delve into the stories of those who got away with murder only to confess in their final moments, we confront the enigmatic interplay between guilt, redemption, and mortality, casting a somber light on the complexities of the human condition. Number 3. Gina Brooks. On the evening of August 5th, 1989, 14-year-old Gina Brooks from Fredericktown, Missouri, vanished without a trace. She had been enjoying her brother's baseball game earlier that day and had plans to visit her boyfriend afterward. However, when her mother, Cindy, woke up around 2 a.m. and found Gina's room empty, panic set in. Police were called, and a search began immediately. Gina's bicycle was discovered abandoned on the side of the road, but there was no sign of her. Witnesses reported seeing Gina near a local church, where she was approached by 3 men in a blue station wagon. She fled on foot as the men pursued her, and screams were heard before the car sped off towards the highway. Despite exhaustive efforts by the community and law enforcement, Gina remained missing for years, leaving her family and the town devastated. It seemed her fate would remain a mystery forever until September 1996, when a terminally ill patient named Brian Squires confessed to his involvement in 3 unsolved murders, including Gina's. In his final days at a St. Louis hospital, Squires admitted to being part of the group that abducted Gina. He implicated 2 other men, Nathan Williams and Timothy Bello, in the crime. According to Squires, they kidnapped Gina, assaulted her, and then disposed of her body. This revelation brought a sliver of closure to Gina's loved ones, but the pain of her loss lingered. Squires passed away shortly after his confession, leaving unanswered questions and a community grappling with the horror of what had transpired that fateful night in 1989. Brian Squires' death meant he evaded facing justice for his crimes, but what about Nathan and Timothy? Both men were apprehended in 1999 in connection to Gina's murder. Timothy had a history of run-ins with the law, particularly concerning mistreatment of women. When questioned, he didn't deny involvement in Gina's murder and even provided information about where her body might be located, pointing to a freezer on his father's property. Despite thorough searches, Gina's remains were never found. Timothy's charges related to Gina's case were dropped in 1999, and he later faced charges for lying to the FBI, receiving a relatively light sentence of 30 months in prison. Nathan Williams also had charges dropped in connection to Gina's case. Law enforcement doubted Brian's deathbed confessions, claiming they lacked credibility since they were made to nurses rather than the police. Nathan faced charges for other crimes, including assaulting a young girl shortly after Gina's disappearance and the suspected murder of Tammy Serta, a 12-year-old girl who vanished in 1975. Nathan confessed to kidnapping, assaulting, and killing Tammy, but her body was never found. Despite the evidence against him, Nathan has never been convicted of murder. However, he received a minimum sentence of 30 years in prison for his other charges and is currently incarcerated at the Jefferson County Correctional Center in Missouri. Number 2. Geraldine Kelly. Geraldine Kelly, known as Jerry, was far from your average woman in the early 1990s. She had a striking appearance with tattoos covering her body, kept attack dogs as pets, and was occasionally seen with a large boa constrictor draped around her neck. But what led her to become this unconventional? Jerry met her future husband, John Kelly, during their childhood, and they later married and had 2 children. However, their marriage took a dark turn in 1981 when John, intoxicated at a wedding, got into a fatal altercation, resulting in the death of his brother-in-law. Fearing murder charges, John relocated his family across the country to California, where he found work at a motel. Despite the move, his alcohol abuse persisted, leading to constant fights with Geraldine and ultimately driving their children away. Allegations surfaced of John's abuse towards Geraldine, causing her to harbor resentment towards him. Eventually, the abuse became unbearable, prompting Geraldine to take drastic action. She shot and killed John, then concealed his body in a freezer where it remained for over 6 years. Allegations surfaced of John's abuse towards Geraldine, causing her to harbor resentment towards him. Eventually, the abuse became unbearable, prompting Geraldine to take drastic action. She shot and killed John, then concealed his body in a freezer where it remained for over 6 years. During this time, Geraldine deceived her children, telling them their father had died in a car accident. It wasn't until Geraldine was dying from breast cancer that she confessed to her daughter the truth about her husband's murder. Following Geraldine's death, her daughter notified the authorities, leading them to discover John's remains in the freezer. Despite the grim revelation, justice for John's murder was elusive as Geraldine had passed away before her confession, leaving her unable to face the consequences of her actions. Number 1. Michael Mansfield. In 1975, 20-year-old Michael Mansfield, a student at Lincoln College, found himself in trouble with the law after being caught with stolen goods. In exchange for leniency, Michael agreed to testify against the person who sold him the items, leading to the arrest of 21-year-old Russell Smrtikar. However, Michael's own fate took a mysterious turn on New Year's Eve when he vanished without a trace after leaving home in Rolling Meadow, Illinois. His disappearance became a cold case, with no leads for years. The following year, another strange incident occurred in Lincoln, Illinois. Ruth Martin, a 51-year-old resident, failed to show up for work, and her husband discovered a bullet and a stain in their garage. Despite extensive searches, Ruth remained missing, and her car was found abandoned with bloodstains in the trunk. Months later, on October 9th, tragedy struck again when gunshots were heard in a quiet neighborhood. Jay and Robin Fry, both 25, were found murdered in their home, with Robin tragically pregnant at the time. Police struggled to find a motive or connection between the murders of Ruth Martin and the Frys. However, investigators eventually discovered a surprising link between the victims. They were all expected to testify against Russell Smrtikar. Jay had caught Russell stealing from a grocery store where he worked, and Russell threw the stolen items into Ruth's car. Michael, on the other hand, had disappeared before testifying against Russell for unrelated reasons. Russell was arrested and later convicted of the murders, receiving 2 life sentences in prison. Despite years of investigation, Russell remained silent about the details of the crimes until his deathbed confession in 2011. He admitted to the murders but didn't disclose the location of Michael's body. He did claim that Ruth Martin's body was buried under a highway and under construction, but her remains were never found. Russell died soon after his confession, leaving some mysteries unresolved. Conclusion: in the annals of criminal history, there exists a peculiar subset of cases where the guilty parties, having eluded justice for years, unexpectedly come clean about their crimes at the threshold of death. These instances, both chilling and confounding, offer a glimpse into the complexities of the human psyche and the weight of conscience. Despite evading the long arm of the law for significant durations, these individuals find themselves compelled to unburden their souls, perhaps driven by a primal urge for absolution or an innate desire to confront the truth before departing this world. Their confessions, uttered in whispers or scrawled hastily on paper, serve as haunting epilogues to tales of deceit, manipulation, and tragedy. As we delve into the stories of those who got away with murder only to confess in their final moments, we confront the enigmatic interplay between guilt, redemption, and mortality, casting a somber light on the complexities of the human condition. Would you like it? Hit the like button and subscribe to our channels for more interesting and informative videos.